Evening, everybody. So we are going to chat a little bit about what it's like living in Baltimore, but first let's start with some introductions. So I'll go first. I'm Danica. I'm one of the third-year fellows here at Hopkins, originally from Wisconsin, and I did my residency training in Emory in Atlanta prior to coming to Baltimore. Sean, why don't you go next?
I'm Sean. I'm incidentally also from Wisconsin, but kind of a different part than Danica. I grew up there and I did my residency in Chicago. I'm a first-year fellow now at Hopkins. This is my first time living in the East Coast. Jillian, maybe you next.
Hey everyone, my name's Jillian. I am actually a rising fellow, so I'll be starting in July. I'm from New Hampshire originally, and spent some time in Boston and then Providence for med school, and then actually I'm a resident here at Hopkins, so living in Baltimore, excited to be staying here. How about Seema?
Hi, everyone. I'm also a rising fellow with Jillian. I grew up in Beirut, Lebanon. I did 2 years of research here before starting residency at Hopkins. So I've lived in Baltimore for 5 years, and I'm staying another 3 years for fellowship. And I'm really excited about it because I love living in Baltimore. And that leaves Diana.
Hey everyone, I'm Diana. I'm a third-year fellow, and I'm originally from the Maryland, DC area. And then I did my residency and worked as a hospitalist in Seattle before coming back to Maryland. Nice to meet all of you.
Great. And so why don't we start with where you guys are living, or if you've lived in multiple places, if you own, if you rent. Let's go reverse. And Diana, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so I've been renting in an apartment complex in the downtown Inner Harbor area, which is near Otterbein and Federal Hill neighborhoods, which are also popular neighborhoods that people like to live in, and I really enjoyed it. How about Sean next?
Sure. So I've been renting a row home in Upper Fells Point this past year. I'm actually going to be moving into Harbor East or Harbor next year, but for this year, it's been fantastic. It's a really, really close spot to the hospital. So I actually don't have a car and I walk up and down Wolf Street every day, which has been fine. It's like a 10-minute walk. And the neighborhood itself is really nice. There's a bunch of kind of like cuter small restaurants and things. And it's very close to Patterson Park, which is a awesome decompression place. Yeah, Jillian, maybe you want to go next.
Sure. So right now I'm actually living like right next to the hospital, which is extremely convenient. And I do like the building I've been living in, but I'm moving to Inner Harbor as well. Sounds like that's going to be a popular spot for next year, which is just like a really nice area by the water. And I'm super excited to be able to, take walks by the water and enjoy all the restaurants down there. And Danica?
Great. Yeah. So I lived in the Inner Harbor. I rented an apartment for the first 2 years. I feel like in general, Inner Harbor is a lot of the kind of like high-rise apartment buildings. But currently I'm staying in Locust Point in a row home. It is a neighborhood in South Baltimore that's very like young family, young professional friendly, mostly all row homes, and just very safe to walk around. There's cute little neighborhood restaurants and bars. Yeah. And Seema?
I originally was living in Mount Vernon, which is an area that's kind of closer to the hospital. And now we're renting an apartment in the Harbor East area and also moving to Inner Harbor. Jillian and I are actually also moving to the same building because we're that much of kindred spirits. But the reason I particularly picked those locations when we were looking at where to live is because I also don't have a car and I don't like driving to work and I don't like parking my car and all that stuff you have to think about. And both Mount Vernon and Fells Point, as well as Canton, Hopkins does a really good job about having shuttles that are really regular and accessible to go to and from campus. So I use the shuttle now in residency. I used it as a research fellow from Mount Vernon. And that really helps me in terms of like getting to and from the hospital and not having to worry about driving. So that's one of the things I love about living in this area.
Great. And how about how all of you have found like just living in Baltimore, the livability of the city? We'll start with Jillian this time.
Sure. I feel like Baltimore is an extremely livable city. I'll say it's super affordable. Having lived in Boston previously, I think the rent I'm paying right now is less than I paid in Boston like almost 10 years ago. And it's so easy to commute around. There's like minimal to no traffic, honestly. It's just a really easy, accessible place to live. Diana.
Yeah, I also find Baltimore very livable. It's like super accessible and it has a really down to earth vibe. And it's also got a really great central location in terms of proximity to other cities. Like it's very close to the DC area, which has a lot of neighborhoods and counties like Howard County, Montgomery County, Northern Virginia. And it's like super easy to get to other big East Coast cities, like less than 2 hours from Philadelphia, less than 4 hours from New York City. So yeah, living in Baltimore has been great. How about Seema next?
Yeah, I think Baltimore is really livable and really easy to live in. That's what I love about it. Like, near where I live, everything is walkable, like a grocery store, a dentist, a coffee shop, cool restaurants, bars. And I really like that. There's a lot of like pockets of neighborhoods in Baltimore and each have a different vibe, but each one, no matter where you live, has like everything you need accessible. And I also find Baltimore really livable in the way that it's not very crowded and expensive. So you don't have to think like 10 times before you make any like social plans or you want to just like go out to eat. You can just pick a nice place and you'll definitely have like a reservation or a spot there. And I will add to what Diana said in terms of travel, because I travel internationally a lot to go back home. And Baltimore is a great city in terms of traveling internationally. There's 3 airports nearby: BWI, Ronald Reagan, and Dulles. And so when you're looking for international or even like flights within the US, it's really nice because you have a lot of options and you can usually find like really cheap tickets. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, totally. And kind of going off what both Diana and Seema were talking about, the train station is fantastic as well. It's kind of right up close to the undergraduate campus, but still very close to the downtown, and is just another really efficient way of getting to any big city on the East Coast for not that much money at all. Yeah, and the downtown's just like so compact here. It's like folded over itself around the water that everything is really, really walkable, and the whole area is really nice because it's essentially all waterfront. Upper Fells specifically is a really livable area, and it's definitely a little bit cheaper, I think, than even some of the Inner Harbor apartments. Even with those not being terribly expensive, it's a good option for the first year, I think, with being super close to the hospital and not having to pay that much more.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think that Baltimore has all of the perks of any other big East Coast city. Like you can, if you're interested in arts, there's arts here. There's a great sports scene here. The food is fantastic. Anything that you can find in a big city, you can find in Baltimore, but it's just so much easier to get around the city. You can get out of the city really quickly. And so it feels more like a small town despite having all of these perks and options for you, which I think is fantastic. And I did want to mention, I forgot to mention earlier, I think that we're all renting, but we have had fellows in the past that have bought houses here. So certainly even in, resident and fellow salary, you're able to consider that if that is something of interest as well. Okay. What is your favorite thing about Baltimore? What is the thing that you love the most? Seema, you can get us started.
I love food. I love to eat. I love to try new restaurants. And I think Baltimore I think it's a really underrated food city. It has a lot of really unique and amazing restaurants at really reasonable prices. And they do a lot of kind of like Baltimore Restaurant Week, and you get to try even the kind of like upper end restaurants that are around. So I love going and trying new restaurants in Baltimore. My goal is to try like most of the restaurants in Baltimore if possible. 5 years down, I'm working on it. And my second favorite thing I will add is I love living by the water. Like even when I grew up, Beirut is by the water. And so just being able to like a short walk, be able to see the water, walk along the water, that's one of my favorite things about Baltimore for sure. Diana, do you want to go next? I feel like I always pick Diana, but
That's fine. I would actually also say that the food scene in Baltimore is amazing. There's a lot of really, really unique restaurants. And then if you are kind of looking to be even more adventurous, like the entire DC, Maryland, Virginia area has an amazing food scene as well. Lots and lots of different kinds of cuisines, lots of, everything from like fine dining to hole in the walls, and they're all really great. But I guess to add something different, I also really like that Baltimore has a lot of parks and green spaces. Like it's really easy to just go for a walk around a local neighborhood, and there's beautiful parks. It's a great place to have a dog, but then it's also pretty drivable to like hiking and trails. There's a lot of hiking and trails that are in the Maryland area, and they're all within pretty close driving distance. And then I also really like that Baltimore has a lot of, I think, like fun, cultural, social, music, arts events, especially when the weather is nice. It seems like there's always an event going on every weekend, and it's pretty easy to find something fun to do. How about Jillian next?
So I'll start by echoing everything that Seema and Diana said. Amazing food, beautiful places to walk around, like by the waterfront, in Canton, just like really cute areas that are just awesome to spend time outdoors in. And the weather's like pretty good. I'm from New Hampshire, so I'm used to it being like cold and snowy all the time. But the weather is like great by comparison here. So you get to spend a lot of time outdoors during the year. And then just to elaborate a little bit more on sort of the art scene as well, there's like a lot of great things to do in terms of like museums, and like my partner and I have like season passes to the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, which by the way are super affordable. If you're like, there's like a certain discount you can get if you're, I forget, under age 40 or something. So it's really accessible. It's really fun. There's also like a lot of great museums that are actually free. So like the Walters Museum is free. You can go to the Peabody Library, which is like magical, and that's free. The Baltimore Museum of Art is free. So lots of awesome stuff to do, and it's super affordable. And I think Danica hasn't gone yet. Yeah.
Sounds good. I echo what everyone else also said. I think I find Baltimore incredibly charming. It is called the Charm City after all. And I think that they live up to that nickname, both from the people that you meet that are from Baltimore and live in Baltimore, to every neighborhood that has its own different charm, to all of the kind of quirky and fun festivals that Baltimore has, whether that's Artscape, which is like a massive free outdoor art festival, or this like kinetic sculpture race festival they have, or Hunfest, all of these things that you don't really find in other places but are here in Baltimore. Sean?
Yeah, sure. I think part of the downtown being so compact and the city itself being so close together is that there's this really cool sense of community, both in terms of like the individual neighborhoods. Upper Fells has all these like community outings and kind of neighborhood organizations, but also the city as a whole. And it's a fantastic sports city. Both of the sports stadiums are like right downtown and relatively affordable to get to. And people just freak out when the Ravens or the Orioles are playing well, which is a lot of fun to be around.
And I will also add just how historical the city is. We have Fort McHenry, which is right downtown, and it's a beautiful free park area. That's where Star Spangled Banner was written. There's a lot of parks here that are historical monuments of where certain battles were fought and in all the different wars. And there's so many more like historical things in Baltimore that I'm sure that I don't even know, but you have all that rich history here as well.
One other thing I can toss in as well, in addition to the kind of native Baltimore community being so strong, it's a really unique city in that it's so dense with medical trainees that if you're moving here for the first time, it's super easy to kind of make new friends and find people to help support you along the way. I think Seema's partner that's listening in the background wants me to mention how often we play basketball together. But it was a great way to like connect with people when you don't know many people in the city.
Great. And Sean, what are a couple of your favorite things to do outside of the hospital?
So as mentioned, I like getting my butt kicked by Mej and basketball. But seriously, even as a first year fellow, I've been able to get over there and play basketball at the gym, which is kind of like included as part of the Hopkins medical campus, at least a couple times a week, which is great. I've gone to a bunch of Orioles games. The stadium's right downtown and it's really easy to get to and cheap, like I mentioned. And beautiful. I think it's like pretty much universally regarded as the most beautiful baseball stadium in the country. And then I bought a season pass for the aquarium too, which is only like $50 or $60. But it's fantastic. I think it's probably the nicest aquarium in the country too.
I didn't hear what you said, but I'm gonna go next. It's so funny because Mej kept asking me to remove my AirPods so he could hear, and now I know that he just wanted to hear a shout out about himself. Okay. Um, so we're talking about things you like to do in Baltimore. One of the things I really like to do is go hiking. There's a lot of nearby hiking trails. That are really close and beautiful. Like Loch Raven is just 20 minutes away, and you can kayak in the summer. It's really nice. Patapsco State Park. So we have a nice day off, and it's really nice out, which happens a lot in Baltimore. We have really good weather. We love to go hiking. Jillian.
So I echo that. Love hiking, super easy to get to. I also just love to eat. It's so easy to just like, meet up with a friend, go find like a great place to eat, just like walk around. There's so many nice days. And I love to bake and cook also. And Diana.
Yeah, so I also really enjoy hiking. And then in addition to hiking, taking just walks around the neighborhood with my dog, which is super, super easy. Like I said, so beautiful and such, a large amount of green space. Also really like to explore new restaurants. To add on something different, I also like to go climbing, and there's a lot of climbing gyms both in Baltimore and right outside of Baltimore, like in Columbia and in Lutherville. And there's a lot of young people and young professionals living in the area. So it's pretty easy to find, I think, a group of people to find any hobby with. Like there's a really big arts culture, there's a big board game scene, and there's a really big climbing scene. Danica?
Great. Yes. I echo everything everyone said already. I also, my partner and I love to go and try all the local breweries and also local coffee roasteries, rotisseries, however you say that word. There's a lot of just great local restaurants, bars, cool businesses, and everyone really seems to like to support local places here. And even I moved here right when COVID started, and everything is kind of, or most places have been able to like stay afloat. And I think that just speaks to the people in Baltimore really liking to support local places, which is great. All right. Anyone else? Any last words about how great Baltimore is? Okay.
I'll just add that we've lived here for 5 years, and kind of like Sean said, because so many people are moving to Baltimore and kind of people with similar jobs or a similar age group, it's like a young city, and people are always interested in meeting new people. So it's really come to feel like home. We have a really strong community of friends, and we continue to meet new people. And I think that's what makes the place more special. And that's why I was really excited to stay, because that's what makes it feel like home. So I think that's a really big perk about Baltimore. And because it's like a manageable size, you kind of like can't leave the house without seeing someone and bumping into someone. And I think that's a really nice kind of neighborhood feel that we love.
And people from Baltimore have a lot of pride in their city, both just what they have to offer, their sports teams, as I think Sean mentioned, and just the charming nature of Baltimore. That's great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.